Okay, let's get started with The Shining. Um, First thing I want to mention is that this is the first shot of the movie The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. And if we notice, it's first of all, it's an action shot. It's already in motion. It's almost as if you're walking in on a movie that's already been playing before you even sat down, which kind of jars the viewer. It's a helicopter shot going over this lake. But the point is that the first point that's made is that it's a moving action shot, if you will. And that implies that the movie has already been running. You've missed part of the movie, and the movie is going. Hey, let's go. The next thing I want you to notice is what has been pointed out. A lot of my ideas I have gotten from the internet, and then hopefully I have a few new ones that are not on the internet. That's the only reason I've decided to shoot that, because there's so many videos on The Shining out there for you guys to watch. But I think I found quite a few new things, which hopefully will make this video worthwhile above the other stuff. But anyways, a lot of people mentioned that there is mirrors play an important part of the movie The Shining. We will see mirrors all over the place, and the very first shot is a mirror shot. It shoots the mirror. The lake mirror is obvious. The lake is the sky, and the sky is image is on the earth, and so that's kind of an obvious reference. That's what's in the sky really happened on the earth instead, or was filmed on the earth. But one interesting thing that no one I think has mentioned out there on YouTube is that there's another mirror, and this is the mirror that actually occurs much more in the movie, and that's not an up-down mirror. It's actually a sideways mirror, mirror where there's a left side of the screen and the right side of the screen. And one interesting thing about, if you look at the left side of the screen and the right side of the screen, the left side almost looks like a moon landscape. You can barely see the trees and whatever. You can see the rocks very well, but the right side is very well lit. And Kubrick was a photographer before he was a filmmaker, so to him, shadows and lighting and photography, of course, are very important to him. So for him to request from the helicopter writer, a pilot, to get this specific shot, he had something definitely intended in mind. And I believe that this shot sets up the very beginning, that he says, there's the moon on the left, the moon landscape, and the earth on the right, and they are mirror images of themselves. So this kind of gets started the idea. It's not obvious. It didn't come to me for a long time, but hopefully we'll play on that, and we'll come back around when we come at the end of the lecture, and see what you think about it after that. Right now, I know you think it's kind of a little bit nutsy, but let's go through each of the frames here. Here is the helicopter continuing. The next shot is this one, which is an interesting shot. There's the car there. I'll point out with the mouse. The car is right here that Jack Nicholson is driving to go to the hotel for his interview. It's a yellow Volkswagen Bug, which we'll talk about later. Right now, what I want you to notice about this is that he's showing you the trees and the car going in between on a road, and the only way you can see that car, if you were standing on the side of the road, is to be on a helicopter shot. So the message I see here, the metaphorical photography that's going on here, to me, is that you will only see what is going on if you look through the forest. It's a terminology, an old vernacular of that you wouldn't know what's going on unless you could see through the forest, And here you are seeing through the forest. You can actually see Jack through the forest by being way up. And if we watch, he drives through the forest there. And there he is out in plain sight, and I think that's Kubrick saying, see, if you can see through the forest, you'll see everything nice and clear. One thing you will notice that there has not been any credits yet. So it's as if you had walked in on a movie in a helicopter shot, and the movie had already been playing. And even though you were sitting in your seat, well, when the movie started, it's almost as if a movie was already playing. You don't know what's going on here or whatever, and it's an action shot. It's a motion photography shot with a helicopter. Here we go with the credits. Now, one of the most interesting things about the credits is they roll. Here they are rolling. Look at that. Credits are rolling. Now, I don't know about you, but I have never seen the beginning of the movie having rolling credits. And what is the symbolism of rolling credits? Well, where do we see rolling credits? We see rolling credits almost 100% of the time at the end of movies. I would love for people to point out all the movies that have had rolling credits at the beginning of movies. Put them in the comments at the bottom. I'd love to see them, but I personally have never seen rolling credits at the beginning of a movie that I can remember. So as we see the credits rolling, what does this tell us? I think Kubrick is saying that the movie that you walked in on is over. And after these credits roll, this is reality. It's as if it's when the last credit comes up, which is that one right there, I believe is the last credit. This is no longer a movie. You have now seen the last movie end, and this is the beginning of you walking out of the theater and experiencing reality. In other words, Kubrick is saying everything that comes after my beginning rolling credits here is everything that comes after it is actually reality. It's real. It is about the real world. It is not some movie you're watching in a theater. So that's one thing that I haven't heard on YouTube, and I'll point that out just for my own tutor. Here is the hotel that we're going to be spending quite a bit of time at. One thing about this shot, actually we'll take a look at the next shot, is we are going to see the number 42 play quite a bit in the Shining. I'll bring that up later on, but it turns out that if you count the number of vehicles, and I'm pretty sure that's a truck right there, but if you count the number of vehicles, so this is not a vehicle, this is some sort of sign. If you count the number of vehicles here, people have pointed out on the internet, of course, that there are 42 vehicles, and you can count them yourself to prove that. But the number 42 you're going to see come up quite a bit, and I'll explain that later. But I just wanted to point out that Kubrick did make this shot mainly for that purpose. One other thing I kind of like is that looks like there's an Indian face right here. I don't know why, but it always pulls my eye towards that thing. Not that I'm one of those people who believe this movie is about the Indian suffrage that occurred in our early time period of our nation. Here's my explanation of the number 42 that we're going to see. 237, 2 times 3 times 7 is 42. 2 plus 3 plus 7 is 12. And 6 times 7 is 42. I know that's basic mathematics, but I just want you to make sure you realize these numbers we're going to see so often. There's even a movie out there, of course, called Room 237, a very popular movie out there if you want to watch that. It's an interesting movie. But we will see these quite often, so I wanted to make sure and sear those into your mind so that when I mention them again, you'll be like, okay, I'm getting nauseous of the numbers 237, 42, 12, and 6 and 7, which we will see later on. Okay, here's Jack behind the pillar. We can't see him. I didn't get a very good shot of that. The only thing I want you to notice here is what's kind of interesting is this says the gold room here. I know you can't read it probably, but this is the entrance to the gold room, and I just want you to notice that the doors are shut. There are people behind it, which is kind of strange for the doors to be shut with people behind it. So Kubrick is saying something here. The other thing that's kind of interesting here is that there are these symbols that almost look like A's right here. A's, and they're red, white, and blue, which is also interesting. So there are A's on the floor all over the place. We'll see more of them later on. Anyways, I just want you to notice that the door was closed to the gold room, and here's Jack over here. He's coming around the corner in just a second. And here he is asking where the manager's office is, so he can go talk to him about his thing. One thing interesting, the first time we see the reflection of the number 12, remember 12 was one of the important, it's 2 plus 3 plus 7 is 12, is there's the mirror reflection of 12 is 21. If you were to look at 12 in a mirror, it would be 21, and there are 21 pieces of mail in the little chutes here, right here, if you count them up. People have mentioned that on the internet quite a bit too. A lot of smart people out here. This is a very interesting shot. We can see the television, which we will see later on. Even in this blurred shot, we can see that there's no electrical wire plug for the TV. It's just sitting there. So I guess we figure, it must be a broken TV, but we'll see later on it's not. So this is an early shot that Kubrick is already setting up, and we won't see until almost an hour into the movie there. So just wanted to point that one out. Here's Jack walking into the office. Interesting thing is that these look like skis, and Ullman is about to tell Jack that skiing is not really done here at this resort, and I don't even think they have a ski lift or anything like that. But it looks like this man is carrying skis, so that's kind of an interesting point. Sorry, it went backwards. The thing I want you to notice about this shot that's kind of interesting is you have conventional pictures of the hotel, which you would make sense in a thing, but then you have this crazy, insane picture. I don't know, drawn by Picasso on acid or something like that. So this is a mirror again that Kubrick is causing here. I don't know who the artist is here. I think somebody has mentioned it on the internet once, and that painting might have a name that's also interesting. But I just want you to notice that painting there. Here's another shot of it there. This is an interesting shot too, a very important shot. One thing I want you to notice is that there's an eagle, big old wooden eagle on the back sill here. We'll see him later on. And there's another eagle right over here. There are two eagles in this picture, and it's been pointed out that on the internet that the eagle was the symbol of Apollo 11 moon landing. The eagle has landed, was the Apollo capsule that landed on the moon, and so it was called the Eagle. So I do want you to definitely, these will be very important things. The other thing, which is a little bit more lewd, I don't know if Kubrick intended this, but if you go watch Clockwork Orange, a movie that was originally rated X, which just as a historical interesting thing is, I think Kubrick is the only person that has ever made a G-rated movie and then an X-rated movie, The Clockwork Orange. By the way, an X rating, it wasn't like a porno. In the old days, X was like an NC-17 rating. That's why people used to see triple X movies. That was a porno. But movies regularly got an X rating, which means that nobody under 17 could go see it. And those were an X rating would have an artistic rating. In fact, the movie Midnight Cowboy, I think, originally had an X rating also, and it won a Best Academy Award for Best Picture. So that shows you that an X-rated movie can win. Nowadays, they're both Clockwork Orange and Midnight Cowboy are both rated R. You'll see, but originally they were rated X because they were highly sexualized. So, anyways, I diverged there. That people have pointed out that this is showing that Ullman has a hard-on for Jack, and Jack is supposed to represent Stanley Kubrick. Right now, Ullman is dressed in red, white, and blue here, and so Ullman represents the NASA or the American government that would love to get Kubrick to come in after they've seen the 2001 work that he did, the realistic work on realistic moon landing work on 2001, they'd love to get a hold of Stanley Kubrick, Jack Nicholson, for The Thing, and some people have pointed out that Kubrick did this to show that the American government has a hard-on for Stanley Kubrick. It's possible because Stanley Kubrick didn't do anything that he didn't want. So I think if he would have seen that, he would have not wanted it if he didn't want it. Anyways. Here I show you the symbol. This is the official NASA symbol of the Apollo 11. This is not in the movie The Shining. I just inserted this so you can see that the eagle is the symbol. This is the patch that the astronauts wore. You can go check that out for yourself. I just put that in there for you. It is not in the movie The Shining. Anyways, I don't think there was anything special about this. Just again, we'll notice the two eagles. We will be bringing them up again. Interesting thing somebody else will have to figure out is why we have plants above here. That's kind of an interesting production idea that Kubrick had. So I still haven't deciphered that. There's a lot of stuff that's left out for other people to decipher in this movie. I'm sure I didn't find everything. Okay, this is Danny, Jack Nicholson's son, and Wendy, his wife, back home in Colorado, and they're having a breakfast, maybe lunch there. First thing you want to notice about this picture is very interesting. There's a fairly nice camera right here. It's actually it looks like it's not a conventional camera, but an actual film camera where you can take movies with, and it's you wonder why it's sitting next to Danny, and that's because Danny is supposed to represent Stanley Kubrick. Also, Danny and Jack are linked in that manner. Interesting about the real names. This is Danny Lloyd is the actor, and Danny is his name. So Kubrick was able to find somebody with the same name, and in the book, The Shining, that Stephen King wrote, and also have Jack Nicholson be the same name. Jack Nicholson, and the character is called Jack also. Anyways, the camera here represents that Danny is Stanley Kubrick. That's why there's the camera. The other thing I want to point out is there's a baseball. Kubrick is going to have a lot of things right by people's heads, which implies what they're thinking. And so there's a baseball behind Danny. Well, what is it sitting on the ironing board? Why is a baseball on an ironing board? Give me a break. You know what I mean? Well, it's obvious. Stanley Kubrick is saying that Danny wants to play ball, or that's what's on his mind, is playing games. One interesting thing is I think these are salt shakers and a pepper shaker, which is salt and pepper. And I don't know if the only closest thing I could think of a metaphor is that Wendy thinks in black and white, or in right and wrong. And so that's why I think he put that there. There is, I think, right here an ivory bull. So I don't know what that is supposed to represent. Maybe somebody else can point that out. Somebody on the internet has done stuff about the Catcher in the Rye book that Wendy has read. I'm sorry, you'll have to go and find that video of The Shining, but I'm not very familiar with the book, except that the guy who killed John Lennon was supposed to have read that. And I think John Lennon was killed in 1980 when this movie was released. But I think this was shot before John Lennon was released. So I don't know if CIA agents watched. Well, I'm sure the CIA watched The Shining. I don't think they left Kubrick to do whatever he wanted. But we'll see that Kubrick was able to hide this from his messages fairly well. Do you want to really go to that hotel for winter? Danny already knows that Jack is this. It's going to be lots of fun. Let's just wait and see. We're all going to have a real good time at the hotel. Okay, that sounds promising. There's a lot of fade shots in The Shining. People have pointed that out on the internet also. This is an interesting fade shot because you've got it. Kubrick does this on purpose because he has fade shots and then he'll have a cut, black and black edit cut shots, which we'll see also. But here he's got a fade shot, and the fade shots have symbolism in them. And notice that Wendy's mouth is right positioned right on Jack's head, which means a lot of no one. This is another thing that I haven't seen anybody. People have discussed fade shots in The Shining, but they haven't discussed. They haven't discussed this fade shot, and this idea that I'm about to propose, and that is everybody on the internet says that Jack and Danny are Stanley Kubrick, and my analysis, and I think I'll prove it by the end, is that not only are Jack and Danny connected as Stanley Kubrick, I believe Wendy is also Stanley Kubrick. There's a couple of reasons. One thing about her clothing is most of the clothing she has, she never wears a dress that shows her bare legs. If she's wearing a dress, then she's wearing really, really tall boots, so you can't ever see her legs. I know that sounds like a crazy thing, like, well, who cares that she never wears that? But there's another reason why I believe that Wendy is also a representation of Stanley Kubrick, and that is that there's never any affection. They never kiss. They never hug. They're totally separate. Well, they have no affection towards each other like a normal wife and husband would have. Although I know later in marriage, sometimes wife and husbands don't always are not as affectionate, even in privacy. But anyways, those are the two major reasons, and then there's multiple other reasons which we will see later on. I'm actually going to cut this part right now and continue on the